Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting for Wednesday, April 24th, 2024 to order. The time is now 7:03. Would you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C is the roll call of council members, and I'll ask our city clerk to please take the roll.
Councilmember Beaton?
Here.
Councilmember Rocksmith?
Here.
Councilmember Creyas?
Is excused tonight.
Councilmember Hudson?
Here.
Councilmember Molinar?
Here.
Councilmember Tercero?
Also excused.
Councilmember Vanderstoop?
Thanks, Becky.
Did you say here?
The adoption of tonight's council meeting agenda. Council, a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Melissa, second by Mary. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Item 3 tonight is community comments. Is there anyone present in council chambers tonight that would like to address city council? Please come on up, state your name and city of residence, and try to limit your comments to about 3 minutes.
We have a public hearing tonight as well.
Thank you, yeah. If you're here for any of the items on the agenda that are a public hearing, the CDBG item, we'd ask you to stand by and wait for that item to be here, but anything unrelated to those agenda items, now's the time. Hello, Marion.
Hi. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, and staff. I'm Marion Myers of Mount Vernon, Washington, Cedar Heights Development. Is this on? Ever seen? Okay. Which contains original stormwater facility system constructed in 2007 of a storm pond, which also functions as a dam, and a quarter-mile-long biofiltration swale. The storm pond is designed to handle all the pollution filtration treatment for the regional basin and provides a live storage volume up to the 100-year storm event. These Department of Ecology facilities, as shown in the Cedar Heights as-built drawing and the Cedar Heights plat document, were submitted and approved by the City Council on January 10, 2007, and are on file with the city. The city approved this plat dedication words of storm pond and drainage easement to City of Mount Vernon by acceptance of our plat as signed by city officials when it was recorded. The DOE defines a drainage easement as a legal encumbrance that is placed against a property's title to reserve specified privileges for the uses and beneficiaries of the drainage facilities contained within its boundaries. While the City of Mount Vernon has appropriately maintained the storm pond, it has not maintained the biofiltration swale and access berm drainage facilities since taking over maintenance responsibilities from the developer in 2011. It is severely neglected and in need of a repair. And following the city's first storm pond inspection on July 15, 2011, after taking over maintenance from the developer, the storm pond received a notice of inspection corrections on January 23, 2014 that stated, "There is extensive and uncontrolled vegetation throughout the site. It does not appear that the site has been maintained for several years. This vegetation needs to be removed as soon as possible. Areas of particular concern include the south berm. There were numerous small trees that, if left in place, will quickly become too large to allow for easy access. The spillway on the south berm, this is of particular importance since during a high flow situation, these trees would considerably reduce the spillway capacity. Inlet and outlet pipes to the pond. This is again due to flow control and inspection issues. The downstream outlet north of Division Street says we were unable to inspect the outlet due to very heavy vegetation. This outlet needs to be inspected regularly, so you should also consider ways to permanently improve access to this location." It's too bad no one inspected the biofiltration swale. On April 17, 2024, professional engineer John Ravnick stated to the city that the function of the drainage course located in the drainage easement is not intended to provide any treatment of runoff waters. He stated that it is intended to convey stormwater runoff to the storm pond. But the issue is not about the function of the drainage facility, biofiltration swale. It is that the whole of the biofiltration drainage swale, including the berm, is a stormwater facility and is included within the scope of drainage easement as stated in the Cedar Heights plat document dedication of maintenance responsibilities, and as designed in the as-built drawing and accepted by the city as a biofiltration swale. Also, during council member comments at the City Council meeting on March 13, 2024, concerning the drainage easement, Chris Phillips of Public Works stepped forward and stated, We've also engaged with the Department of Ecology, and the Department of Ecology has said and stated that the city is in accordance with the standards that are set by DOA with the ditch definition. This is incorrect. When I filed a complaint on November 22nd, 2023, with the Northwest Regional Department of Ecology for the city's non-maintenance of the drainage facility biofiltration swale, the DOA permit planner, Leah Shamlin, contacted the city Public Works to allow them to respond, and the city replied that they were aware of the issue. But the permit planner wrote to me that as just a permit planner, there weren't any issues that they could help me with in this situation. The DOE Western Washington Phase 2 municipal stormwater permit is not specific to any municipality or stormwater facility. For the DOA to state that the city is in compliance with maintaining the drainage facility as a ditch would require a compliance inspection of that specific stormwater facility, which has not happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Any other community comments this evening? I'm just gonna, we don't normally comment on community comments, but for this one, because it's kind of been an ongoing one, I'm gonna ask city attorney if maybe you could provide some clarity on this one. I know there was some correspondence sent out, some subject matter experts consulted.
Sure, the city received a complaint by the Cedar Heights HOA president regarding whether or not there was a particular water conveyance maintenance obligation that we are not complying with. The gravamen, or the core of the issue, was a factual dispute at that point on that particular ditch, on whether or not the maintenance standards had to meet what would be considered a water quality facility, a biofiltration swale standard. So the city has two internal subject matter experts to opine as to that. One is in your planning department, who approves all stormwater facilities through the permit process, and one is your manager of stormwater facilities. Both subject matter experts opined after field observation, hydraulic modeling, and looking at the as-built from Mr. Ravnick that these are not biofiltration swales requiring that type of maintenance standard. We took an additional measure. We looked and asked to consult with the actual engineer, Mr. Ravnick, who submitted the design for that particular water conveyance, and he agreed. This is not a biofiltration swale. So you have at this point 3 subject matter experts who have opined that this particular conveyance does not meet that maintenance standards. It is strictly for water conveyance to the stormwater pond, which is your water quality facility. This is also in compliance with the stormwater report submitted by Mr. Ravnick, hydraulic modeling and field observations. We follow the facts here in the city, and the facts are dispositive. So we've closed our investigation as to that particular water conveyance.
Thank you, Kevin. Council, item 4 tonight is the consent agenda, which includes council meeting minutes, payroll checks, wire transfers, claims, and previously budgeted agreement renewals. Would council like to move for adoption of tonight's consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Brocksmith, a second by Councilmember Molinar. Any discussion, council? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. And consent agenda passes. On to reports. Council held Finance and Parks Committee meeting here tonight, and we had some items related to the Development Services Committee as well, but Mary Hudson chaired that. Mary, you have a report for us?
Thanks, Mayor. Like the mayor stated, we met right before this council meeting. First up was Jennifer Berner, our Parks and Enrichment Director. The Arts Commission has selected the artwork for the transformer that is located at the entrance to the Library Commons parking garage. The theme for the submissions was Sprouting Knowledge. We had 27 submissions, and we had a lovely submission by artist Cheryl Wheeler, and that she was the winning artist, so we're pretty excited to see that move forward. The city received a deferred maintenance grant from the State Recreation Conservation Office, and the projects that we've completed so far are the swing arm gates at Bakerview and Hillcrest Parks have been installed. A new roof has been installed on the large gazebo at Hillcrest Park, And a new metal roof has been installed on a small picnic shelter at Hillcrest Park, which was the last one that needed to be replaced. So they're all metal roofs now. We're very excited about that. They'll last a lot longer. The Parks and Enrichment Services Department sponsored an Earth Day event at Hillcrest Park last Saturday. There were about 400 people at the event. There were booths offering hands-on activities, presentations, and volunteer projects for people to participate in. Jennifer also said that there was a reptile man there, which was well attended. Few, but okay. Cherry trees were planted along 13th Street, and Nootka roses were planted along Blackburn. So that project is moving forward very nicely. And finally, the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space, or PROS plan, was approved by the state. That's very good news for us, and a lot of work went into it, so we're very proud of our Parks Department. The plan is in effect for 6 years through 2030. Next, we had some items from our Development Services Manager, Stacy Pratchner. I'm just gonna go over this quickly. She didn't write notes for me, so you get my chicken scratch notes. The monthly report on what's happening in development services, our permit activity is up, about 40 permits. She did give us a brief staffing updates. We have some openings in our planning department, so she gave us some staffing updates. She gave us a comp plan update. The regional coordination between the counties and the cities, countywide plating policies, and North Star Housing Alliance who work together to make sure that we're looking at all the needs we have as it comes into the comp plan, which is a very big undertaking. Look at buildable lands. It's a regional shared approach with mixed use, infill, and affordable housing as key elements. Our RFQ, our request for qualifications for a consultant for the comp plan update, closed. We had several applications, and we should have a motion or an ordinance or whatever we need to do coming before council early May, so we can get them engaged and started on this very large process. We talked about planning and land use fees, and we talked about ADU parking requirements. That's something we're bringing to the public. We will be having a public meeting or a public hearing, if you will, because we want to move forward on some ADU changes in the city to try to get some new development going quickly. And we adjourned our meeting at 6:15.
Thanks, Councilmember Hudson. Those were good notes.
Yeah, great.
Not a reptile fan.
No, not at all.
That's fine. Item 5B is council member comments. Any council members have comments on reptiles or any other perfectly city-related
I do. I have something
topic?
if I could add.
Yeah.
I just want to take this opportunity. Tomorrow is my father's 94th birthday, and he's watching tonight. So, happy birthday, Dad. We'll have dinner tomorrow night with the family.
Yeah, what's your dad's?
Walt,
Should we sing him happy birthday?
go ahead. You want to? Go ahead.
I'm gonna mute my microphone.
All right, well, happy birthday, Walt.
Happy birthday to you, Walt. All right, other council member comments? Yeah.
Sure. So recently I've been asked to join the Mount Vernon Hope Coalition. That is the Healthy Outcomes Through Prevention Efforts. It's a coalition, community collaboration working to implement opioid and other drug prevention through a community-based approach. And the area that they operate in is the Mount Vernon School District. And I was asked to help sort of be a liaison with local government and tribal governments to that coalition. And I think it'll help them have enough representation to apply for a new grant. So that's I guess that qualifies for my time being well spent. But I really wanted to also share with the general public that there is a drug take-back day. It's this Saturday. I think it corresponds with a National Drug Take-Back Day, and I believe it's 10 to 2 here in this building.
Okay, great, thank you. Any council member comments? Okay, let's see, item 5C, there's no mayor's report this week, so I'll ask council for any committee agenda requests. Committee agenda requests, things you'd like to see in future agendas, okay? I think we've got a few of them already from committee, so we'll move on. Item 6 on the agenda is new business, and under new business, item A is a presentation from the Skagit PUD. Special Projects Manager Steve Sexton will introduce this item. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So your first piece of new business on your agenda this evening is an update from Skagit PUD. And just a way of background for folks, Skagit PUD has been the county's largest purveyor of water since 1936. They bring in about 9 million gallons of water to 80,000 citizens and businesses in Skagit County daily. Skagit PUD's organizational values include providing exceptional service, preserving natural resources, keeping rates as low as possible by making wise investments in strategic business decisions. And tonight we have with us General Manager George Sadu and another guy I think is kind of familiar to all that are being here.
I've never seen him.
Mr. Joe Lopez. Joe, you can- George, it's all yours.
Hello, George. Welcome. Welcome, Commissioner Lindquist as well. Thank you for being here.
All right, great. Thank you, Steve. Very good introduction. Looks like you've been reading some of our materials and,
I might skim your website.
yeah, that was really good. I couldn't have done it better myself. Maybe I should just have you come up and do a little bit more. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Thank you for having me here. This is something of an annual thing that I do is come around to the City Council meetings and provide an update, so I appreciate the time. I am here with one of our commissioners, Joe Lindquist. I'm sure all of you are familiar with Mr. Lindquist, having been on the council. I've got about 15 slides or so to give you an update on what we're doing, and should take about 10 or 15 minutes. I'm happy to answer questions as we go along, or at the end, if you prefer. At the end, there'll be a slide. I have my email address and my phone number on there as well. Our phones are working great, by the way, in case you happen to call our office. Little inside joke there.
Must be.
So I'll just launch into it, unless there's any questions before I begin.
Any questions for Jerry?
Nothing? All right.
Yeah, thanks.
I always title our presentation as Building a Secure Water Future because of the things that Steve mentioned, the amount of customers that we serve and the importance we place on that for the community. Just by way of some background, these are our three commissioners, Commissioner Lindquist, Miller, and Hamburg, our three districts, which basically have the same district boundaries as the county commissioner districts. Our commissioners serve 6-year terms, and I believe Commissioner Lindquist's term is up this year, so he'll be running for election for next term. Steve paraphrased our some things that we have in our strategic plan, but that is something that we completed last year to try and set a strategic vision of what we do and the resources that we have to keep focused on priorities. So this is something that we often refer to internally when we look at projects and budgeting and those kinds of things. So just some background there. I'm going to start off with something that's been in the news recently, and it doesn't specifically impact the city directly, but it impacts the community at large. Skagit PUD for years has been a strong partner of our local agricultural community. In recent years, when there's been droughts declared by the state, we have been able to transfer some of our water rights to the irrigators, to certain irrigators, so that they could use it for irrigation. I'll get into that. I'll explain a little bit better on the next slide. But these are two articles that appeared locally last week, and we've worked on doing a seasonal water rights transfer agreement with local irrigators so that we didn't have to wait for a drought or have some other extenuating circumstance. We're trying to provide water security and reliability to our biggest industry in the county, and we're in the process of having these transfers approved by Ecology. And so it's great for water security for our ag community, and it impacts so many different things: jobs, tourism, just having the produce not be subject to the drought. So these are two things that, two articles that appeared recently, but I'll give you a brief kind of summary in case you're not familiar with what goes on. The irrigators that we're looking at, that you can see on the screen, there's two irrigation districts down near Fur Island. And those triangles on the map show the places where they divert water, either onto their fields or into the ditches so they can pump out of the ditches onto their field. In the summer is when they need the water the most to irrigate, but in the summer is also when the flows in the Skagit River decrease from lack of snow melt and rainfall. Their water rights are such that when the river drops below a certain level, they can't pump they can't pump out of the river to irrigate. So it's a really difficult time for them. That's when they need the water to irrigate, but they can't pump it from the river. So what we've been able to do in years past, we have a pump station on the South Skagit Highway up near Cedar Woolley where we usually pump. And so we are able to transfer some of the water rights that we would normally pump. Instead of us pumping it, we transfer it downstream. You can only transfer water rights downstream. It can go down to the places of diversion for these farmers, and they are allowed to pump it. So we've done that during drought seasons. But what we're working on now is a seasonal transfer. So like the first bullet says, we're looking at doing a seasonal transfer from May through October, just so it covers the irrigation season. They would be used, our water rights, the PUD water rights would be used when the Skagit River flows are lower than the water rights allow the irrigators to take them. So if the river is high enough, the irrigators can use their water rights to pump water. When the river drops, they can then transfer and use ours. So it provides them that security of always having the water available for irrigation. It requires an existing surface water diversion, so this transfer isn't available just blanket to anybody that has some irrigation needs. It's very specific. It has to be run through Ecology's filter to qualify. But like the last bullet says, it's in our discussions with the irrigators, Ecology, all of our local partners, this is a great thing, provides a lot of security of water availability, and will allow our farmers, I'm not a farmer, I'm just, I've said this enough times to people, but it allows them to project their businesses for next year and the year after, allow them to select crops that are more valuable for them. It gives them that security that water will be available next year. So this is something we're still working on, has not been approved. It's in the public comment period with the Department of Ecology right now. We're expecting a decision in about a month, and then it should be available. So we're really proud of the work that we've done so far. We're hoping to carry it to the finish line so that this is available to the irrigators.
Can I ask
That was a lot, so I'll
George?
pause here in case there's any questions.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
And I should know this. When you release, I'm guessing, is release a fair thing? You release more water into the river? Is that,
It's just water that we're not pumping for our.
okay,
We have to change our operations. So we also need water in the summer. That's when our
Right.
demands are higher.
Right.
So that pump station that we have on the river, we're going to adjust the way we operate the pump station because we use that water to fill Judy Reservoir, and then that's the water that gets treated and delivered to our customers. So we just have to adjust and make sure that we have enough water in Judy Reservoir at the beginning of the summer demand season. So it's just deferred pumping.
I see.
Is,
Does it flow into the irrigation ditches as well?
I think through these diversion points,
Okay.
they pump it from the river into the
Okay.
ditches, which then gets distributed throughout their irrigation district.
Okay.
And I think it's further pumped from there, or just
Yeah.
runs, it sub-irrigates in some places. I think they
Yeah.
have different ways of irrigating.
And you see a lot of irrigation ditches, right, in all the farmland down south. So I was just curious if it made its way into those as well, because I know the farmers pump out of those too.
Yeah, that's beyond my knowledge, and,
Okay.
I would defer to somebody else that,
Okay.
maybe somebody that's here can speak more to the irrigation needs down there, but
Thank you.
it gets to where it needs to go. We know that.
That's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic creative idea, using existing resources to reduce impacts. As it is limited for, impacts to fish and other aquatic organisms, and so this is a way to reduce some of that. There are actually 4 different water banking mechanisms that have been put into place in the last few years in the county. And so this is a creative one. Seattle City Light did one where they're putting more water in the river for upriver residents to pump from. And then Department of Ecology's also done a water bank in Big Lake. And then Samish was opened up, so there's no water restrictions. So in other words, this is one of 4 different mechanisms that are being implemented across the county to address the lack of verifiable water to help improve residential building and commercial production. So great to be a part of that portfolio, and thanks for the work. This is really cool stuff.
Yeah, just to close it out, like Councilmember Brocksmith said, the water rights that we have are, we look at them as a community resource. It's something that the PUD owns and is responsible for. We are good stewards of the resources that we have. But we can look at the way we operate our system, when we pump, how much we pump, to make this a solution that others can participate in. Because water is becoming more and more challenging every single year, whether it's droughts, wells going dry, residential wells. And so there's a lot of issues. This is one that we can address directly. We are the only ones that can transfer rights like this downstream. We have the rights to do it, so we're gonna try this. This is a kind of a pilot for us. If it works, water banking or something like that is also possibly in our future, and we expand it a little bit. We're gonna try it with this and see if we can work out any of the kinks. So, next year's update, I'll let you know how it went and what the issues were. Hopefully there's none.
Yeah, really.
Moving on. Kind of to close out some of the, one of the big projects that we've done recently that I've updated you on as we worked on construction was our large transmission pipeline. So the red and yellow dashed line is the alignment of our new 36-inch welded steel pipeline that takes water from Judy Reservoir up in the top right corner and delivers it down into the city of Mount Vernon. This is a very large project, about $40 million total, and it is complete and it's in service. So it went through its own little challenges. People saw the pipe out there, kind of not installed, wondering if it was gonna get installed, all those kinds of things. It's in service, everything's working great. It works exactly the way we thought it would work. And we're really happy to have that. It's definitely a more reliable pipeline to serve most of our community. This pipe serves everybody in Mount Vernon and south, and also serves up to the west. So I'll just update you on 2 parts of it. This was the last piece that we had to get in, this directional drill under the Nookachamps Creek. We had to do this twice to get it right. The contractor had to do it twice. This is the second version, but they had to raise the pipe to get it to go under. Over on the left there is the entrance hole, and it goes underneath the creek rather than open digging it through the creek. So this was 1,900 feet that got pulled under Nookachamps Creek to then come up on the other side. So a big U shape under that creek. So it lessened the environmental impact in that area. And it was quite remarkable to see this in action. I'm sure a lot of people did as they were driving by that day. So that was really neat. And then the other part that was really cool is that we had a partnership with Skagit County on a portion of our project where we buried our pipeline in the old county railroad right-of-way. And that is, county partnered with us to make that a continuation of of a trail, the Centennial Trail. And so there's one bridge that goes over one of the forks of the Nookachamps Creek. And so We shared in the cost. Our pipe, you know, these are 3 photos. The one on the right shows our pipe going under the bridge deck. The one on the left shows it from a greater distance, and then that's the one in the middle shows you the deck going over. So this bridge allows the trail to be continuous, going from Big Lake and Big Rock all the way up, and it kind of ends at Clear Lake right now. I think the city of Cedar Woolley and other partners are trying to get it, find a way to continue this trail into Cedar Woolley, either using the Highway 9 bridge or some other way. But this allows it to get up there. So we're really happy about this as well. The bridge, if you drive by it, is supposed to look like that. It's a patina. It's not an old rusted steel bridge. It's meant to look like that. What else are we doing? In Mount Vernon, we do have one pipeline construction project underway. The lines didn't show up very well on this, but it's in general over in West Mount Vernon, up Cascade Street, Baker Street, Lincoln, Cosgrove. It's a distribution pipeline replacement project for us. We have Colacurcio Brothers contractors working on that right now as we speak, and it's going well. We do have a couple of other projects slated. I don't know if it's gonna happen this year or next year, but one near College Way, just to get across the railroad tracks. So I'll update you when we get more information on that. Just some photos of the work going on in West Mount Vernon. It's a plastic pipe. It's PVC. Just because of the kinds of soil, you know, we now analyze the soil and find out the best pipe material to put in, and that was what we were using over there. And I think this is one of the last things I want to talk about, the PUD campus. So I came and discussed this with you, and I know you guys have discussed this on your own a number of times. So I thought I would give you an update as to what's going on. I'm sure a lot of people can see what's going on if they drive by. This was the concept, the rendering on the right and our site plan on the left there, and we're well underway. So we take drone photos with our drone about every week, and this was from last week. So you can see the structure is up, the brick facade is going on, and I think now even the windows are going in the front of the building here. The picture on the left shows the meeting room that we're gonna have. So that lower single-story one on the right, that's gonna be our new locker room. That's gonna be a community meeting room as well as for PUD functions. So that's a view from 2 angles on the front. And there's a view of the back. Just to give you some perspective, you can see our existing building in the background with our green space in between. So it's progressing. We're hoping to be in by the end of the year. And that is all that I have, and I'd be happy to answer questions about anything I talked about, or if there's anything else.
Thanks, George. If you ever need to run a line from the west side to downtown, we'd be happy to partner with you on a pedestrian bridge there.
Okay.
Any other questions from council for
That
George?
was good, Peter. That was good.
That was
I'll
really
write that
good.
down.
Yeah, please do.
Other questions?
Yeah, this is probably not a fair question for George, so maybe it's almost a committee request, but there is a lot of excitement about the new trail created by your pipeline opportunity, and it'd be really great for us to have a regional connection between the city of Mount Vernon and that trail, and to get over to Cedar Woolley and then up the Cascade Trail there. Cascade Trail. So probably not a fair question to ask George how we get across the Nookachamps, but I would really like to have some conversation with the county and any other trail champions about how we do that regional connectivity.
Just to add a comment, I don't have an answer for that, but when we looked at our pipeline alignment and getting from the College Way and up to where we needed to go up Highway 9, we looked at a couple of different alignments. The one that would have allowed or facilitated another pedestrian crossing was over near Big Rock. You know, going right over to the roundabout and then heading up Highway 9. And they call it Big Rock for a reason. It's a lot of rock. And it wouldn't have been good or, you know, efficient for us to dig that out to put a water line in. So we didn't choose to go that way with a pipeline. Doesn't mean a bridge can't be, you know, bolted on or, you know, built over there, so.
Great. Well, George, thank
All
you
right.
for being here tonight.
Yeah.
Commissioner Joe Lindquist, thank you for being here tonight as well. Thank you both for especially the work that you've done for our hardworking farmers to provide some relief for them. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for the time.
Thank you.
All right, item B tonight is a public hearing and approval of the 2024 to 25 CDBG Annual Action Plan, and Steve Sexton has this item as well. Steve?
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Council, this is the second of two open record public hearings regarding the 2024-2025 CDBG Annual Action Plan. This open record public hearing will provide citizens and interested parties an opportunity to give their views and comments on the 2024-2025 CDBG Annual Action Plan, the draft that's included in your packet. One thing I wanted to say, so everybody's on understanding, is the numbers that are reflected in here are still estimates. I know this year, according to my discussions with Mayor Donovan, it's been a little later in getting those numbers from HUD. I think that might have more to do with the fact that their latest funding package was approved just over a month ago on March 22nd. So I think the important thing that for council to look at as we work through this after the public hearing is to focus on the percentages, because the numbers will follow after that. So with that, I would defer to public comment.
Yeah, before we open the public hearing, any questions for Steve about the CDBG action plan or the process? Okay. All right, with that, we will open the open record public hearing for the 2024 to 25 CDBG Annual Action Plan. Anyone wishing to speak can come on up to the podium. Please state your name, city of residence.
Good evening. Good evening. Mayor and council. Melissa Self, I live in Mount Vernon. Thank you for letting us come up here and speak again on the CDBG. I hope you received and had time to review the letter that we submitted by Community Action in regards to the CDB allocations. Community Action has been a fixture in Mount Vernon for the last 45 years, and I'm honored to have spent the last 28 of those filling positions from direct service to now the deputy director. I've seen firsthand the lives that have changed by the caring people who do the hard work on the ground every day. As stated in the letter, Community Action serves a broad segment of your community members, from those living on the streets to those looking for a solution to keep them from living on the streets. Our street outreach team, our utility assistance, WIC, or rental subsidies are just to name a few. These services we provide are direct, immediate, and all-encompassing, and the financial sustainability of these services rely heavily on your ongoing investment. We've witnessed the changing landscape of homelessness and behavioral health in our city over the last 10 years, much different from when I was doing home visits many, many years ago. We've adapted our services to address the market increase in street homelessness by growing our street outreach programs and incorporating care coordination into the work of our housing and resource center work. Building relationships and trust within the community of people that are unhoused is key to the work we do, and many of our staff come from situations very similar to those they're trying to help, giving them a unique perspective and understanding of the needs. Just this morning, we had a 90-minute interaction with a client who had been trespassed from nearly every other resource in the community. I watched our team members attempt to de-escalate this person, along with the Mount Vernon police and the social workers. Thankfully, their caring and compassionate interactions resulted in the person leaving quietly and without further incident. My office is located amidst the outreach team area, and I listen every day to the stories of how life has been saved or how well staff work together to problem solve for a particular client or situation. I meet clients each morning as I come into work that know our staff by name, come to our office, sometimes daily, to reach out to them for support. We recognize there's only a finite amount of funding to go around to the many nonprofits that are doing good work in our city. And while Community Action might appear to be a large organization with ample funding, much of that funding is restricted and dedicated to go directly to the clients we serve, as it should. We are hopeful that the City of Mount Vernon will find a way to continue to partner and support the services we provide at our front door to our service organization, one that so many rely on for basic needs, support, and encouragement. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Anyone else wishing to speak in the open record public hearing for the CDBG annual action plan tonight? Okay. With that, we will close the open record public hearing.
Okay, I'm gonna get out of this stuff, get that cleared off our screen maybe. Okay, so in your packet this evening, council, I kind of picked it up from where it was left off after the last workshop when we discussed CDBG and the distributions. And I know you've got a pretty sizable amount of paper in your packet there with about 68 pages dedicated to this agenda item. So I'd like to walk you through some of the things that are in there. First off, on page 3 of the PDF that's in there, it's the draft action spreadsheet, which we were working from at our last committee meeting. And I don't know if there's this is where it was left with the distribution of the public services, 15%, the entire 15% going to Welcome Home of Skagit County. And I don't know if council has any changes to that or direction that will flow on throughout this document.
Probably be a good time to just declare conflict of interest. So I want to do that I'm a member of the Community Action Board of Directors. I've been a volunteer there for quite a long time. So just let everybody know, and I think there's some other conflicts as well.
Ditto for Welcome Home Skagit.
Okay. As a board member, neither of you profit from those
No, sir.
organizations. Thanks. Thank you.
But as far as that spreadsheet goes, I seem to remember us not really making a decision at the last point, and that it was kind of an open question. It was presented as a 50-50 split with the two organizations. But for the service pot of money between Welcome Home Skagit and Community Action, I really hate the idea of us divvying up a very small pot of money to a huge amount of need out in our community. And so I've been racking my brains to try to figure out and propose ideas for the council to consider of how we can keep both of those organizations whole. We know that it's much more cost-effective and there's less impact on our community when we have these fantastic nonprofit organizations out there working to support people that are most vulnerable in our community, and limit the impacts on our businesses and our police department and our hospitals. So I just don't see it as an option to leave either of those groups unfunded. I've said to the council that I would be all in on dedicating general fund resources, and particularly if we could get the county and any other willing cities to help support Welcome Home Skagit's shelter. I think they asked for about $144,000, which we clearly do not have. But if we can't dedicate something, $50,000 from our general fund, another idea that I came up with that I just sent recently to the mayor, so I don't want to put him on the spot on this, is whether or not we could use 1590 funding to cover this, let's say $50,000 from Welcome Home Skagit, and at the same time leave the remainder for community action, so we don't risk that resource center being closed down. We had a short conversation about that by email, and they do seem like eligible costs because they're operating and maintaining buildings that provide homeless housing services. And then last week we talked about sort of expedited, simpler process to help fund very small, relatively small pots of money from 1590. So I really want to challenge the council to try to find a way to really help both of these organizations because they do so much for our community.
Other discussion? Councilmember thoughts?
I'm waiting for him to talk.
Oh,
I thought you were gonna talk.
I can talk, sure. I appreciate the intent there, and I think that we should be dedicated to helping both of these wonderful organizations, and not to forget Helping Hands as well. I will just continue to advocate that I think that this funding, I do want to go towards Welcome Home Skagit in this instance, but I am more than happy to continue to work on alternative funding for community action. I think that 1590 money would absolutely be applicable to them. And I would encourage us to maybe even ahead of the scheduled time, once again, go after some 1590 money. But I will say that I would prefer Welcome Home Skagit to receive this at this time. And then I think next council meeting, talk about if we can try and apply 1590 money to community action.
Other thoughts? Councilmember Hudson?
It's a hard one. Melissa's a friend of mine, and she's been a friend of mine for longer than either one of us probably care to admit. But I still feel strongly that Welcome Home has just multiplied their presence over since the beginning. They've just they're the only ones doing this shelter, really. So I feel like in this year or this allocation, I really feel strongly that they need to have this much money. I do want to find a way where we can help community action, and I think the 1590 should be a really great tool and a great fit for that. Finding some funding in there for them. I think that's what we were talking about, is the small pieces. You know, how can we help more immediately than the really broad projects that we're expecting out of the 1590 RFP. So that's how I feel about it. I do want to find some funding for community action, but I think we can find that in the 1590 bucket.
So how amazing is it that for the first time, and I don't know, we actually have some other funding sources to be able to have this conversation in the first place. Other thoughts, comments?
Well, you took the words right out of my
Oh,
mouth.
I'm sorry.
Right? I mean, really, I'm sitting here with a pit in my stomach, if you will, because there are two, I don't disagree with one thing that has been said, and yet we have to make this decision. We have heard the sheer volume of people that have reached out for Welcome Home across the county has just been amazing. I agree with what Mary is saying. I do believe that, I recall that this is what we had talked about. We talked about all sorts of things, so.
We did.
So there's that, but I just would be in support of this as it is, and we will absolutely use some of that 1590 funding for community action, absolutely.
To the extent that we're allowed to.
To the extent that we are allowed to
Qualify,
under the law.
Yeah,
Right.
I spoke for you, Kevin.
And that's, if I can quickly, I believe, and Mr. Valesky can correct me if I'm wrong on this, I believe that the city is obligated that portion towards services, that 40% of the 1590 bucket towards the iOS team, or a great percentage of it, if that's already committed those dollars, so.
Oh, yeah.
It may,
I think this one would fit under the 60% bucket, operations and maintenance of housing services.
Yeah, there was
Although I
mention
would-
of services in that other 60% as well, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. We can look at the details, but we will, because we have to follow the law.
There's gonna be I think, shortly, a proposal process, and we can provide them the statutes, and they can
Right.
tell us how they fit it, and then we can look at an analysis.
I would agree with everything I've heard tonight. I could throw my 2 cents in, Mary, you got nothing on Melissa, I graduated with her, so I know her.
Dang it. Darn.
She doesn't look that old, Gary.
I know.
No.
There you go, there you go. agree with you. No, I'd be open for doing the same.
Okay. So with that, I want to point out one other thing before we get off this topic too far. If you look at page 66 of your PDF, I want to point out there's a form in there. It's basically a contingency for what would happen, the recommendation from the CDBG consultant on what route to go if the funding comes in lower than estimated or higher than estimated. I think the smart money is on the unders, the way that it's been going, but hopefully it'll be at the estimated level or close to. So I just wanted to point that out, that there are contingencies in there, built into that, to take action on funding.
Well, what page was that? 64?
66,
66.
yep.
Council, I'll give you a minute to take a look at that and see if you have any questions about that proposed.
That's fine.
I think it's pretty straightforward. All right.
Okay.
Final thoughts, questions, direction on the draft action plan before we make a motion? All right. Well, Council and Steve as well, thank you for shepherding this process through this long and arduous process. Appreciate it, bringing it home. Council, is there a motion to approve and accept this year's proposed CDBG annual action plan?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Andrew and seconded by Mary. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. And the CDBG action plan has been approved. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Item 6C tonight is approval of the city's affordable housing grant RFP, and once again, Steve's going to present this item to council. Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. And once again, I kind of picked this up from where we left it at the last workshop. We made a few minor adjustments in the RFP that you'll see before you. Took out some things, additional points allowed for different things. Council said, expressed a desire to have those taken out. Just some cleaned up about 2 or 3 things in here. I don't know if you had a chance to look this over yet or not, but if we get council approval this evening on this document, we will go out to have this published. May 6th is the date, I believe.
I do have a question.
Yep.
I did have I've had a couple conversations around whether or not oh shoot, where's the wording? I wish that I had it underlined, I'm so sorry. But for a project to be funded, they have to be located within Mount Vernon city limits. And so if that's still there, if you could direct me to where it is so I can read, just because I know that there's some broad talk around services being in Burlington, but from organizations that we work closely with in Mount Vernon. And so if, let's say, you wanted to have a project that supported unhoused folks, if it was in Burlington, I don't know that that's a bad thing, just something to throw out there.
I see it's on page 6 is the first one.
Oh, perfect, I'm so
Projects
sorry I
must
didn't
be
come
located
prepared.
within
Thank
the
you.
city limits.
And I'm not saying that I have a personal opinion, I don't feel super strongly about this, but if we were to have a project that was next to First Step Center in Burlington, which we utilize quite a bit and has been very successful, and there was, let's say, an area there that made sense for a natural transition from a first step to a second step center, I think that this money, we might be interested in something along those lines, and this would limit our ability to help with that. And so just throwing it out there if other people have thoughts about that.
Is it fair to summarize that you're contrasting a project located within city limits versus project serves Mount Vernon residents?
Yes.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Council
I
thoughts?
thought we talked about this already in committee, and you might not have been there.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah, we
Okay.
Because
had
we
several
kinda-
conversations
Yeah.
about it, and we were pretty settled on starting at the city level.
Yes,
Being within the Mount
Yeah.
Vernon city.
yes.
Okay.
Because we kind of went over all the possibilities of what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like it was pretty unanimous, if I remember right, that we kind of wanted our money to stay here unless there was, do we have a little caveat to go outside of that a little bit?
You've always reserved the right to revise your request for proposals. If you see something you really like, we've put in those types of qualifications throughout to preserve your ability to make your choices.
Yeah.
That was it.
I guess I'll just speak very plainly then. Citing unhoused shelter in Mount Vernon is going to be hard. There's not a lot of spaces where that's going to be super easy. There is a natural place in Burlington where that support service is already located. And so, depending on the type of project that we're thinking about, I'm worried that we will limit ourselves, but that's the last thing I'll say about it. Like I said, I don't have super strong feelings about it, but if it was to be a proposal for an unhoused group, permanent supportive housing, whatever that looks like, that will be hard in Mount Vernon. And there's already a place where that's happening in Burlington.
We have, I don't know if you know this, but several years ago, before we cited the Martha's Place, we did, our planning department did an overlay map citing areas where it would work in the city of Mount Vernon.
Oh, I've never seen that.
So there are other areas that was I think that was the number one choice, if I remember correctly. That was where we cited it, was our first choice basically, or was, and I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right, but that was, we put that out to the development, the people that can do those kind of projects.
Yeah.
And said, these are the areas that would work because they're walkable. There's the things that you
Yeah.
need around those areas. So there's more sites in the city where something like that would still fit, just so you know.
Makes total sense to me. I will, well, no, you know what? I've talked enough. I'm gonna shut up. That makes a lot of sense. Excuse me.
Fine, no.
You can keep talking, it's your
Sorry,
meeting.
it's fine.
Council,
Appreciate the
the
questions.
decision tonight is essentially then to, lock in what you have here and leave yourself the option of changing it later or amending what you have here now and leaving it that way.
Yeah, so for me, I just wanted to follow up on the things we talked about last week, just to make sure they got done the way we chatted about them. And I'm not going to introduce anything new. I want to see this thing get done. I know you want to see it get done, and I think it's in really good shape. And there will be additional opportunities to continue to think about that. But the one in particular that I don't see included is the reference to additional future remanded funds that we would we know will be coming in future years. So what the RFP says currently is that we estimate 1.7 million available for funding at the time of applications, which implies that's what is available. But last week we talked about potentially signaling that with this RFP, we reserve the right to consider larger or longer term proposals for future resources. We also talked about last week a kind of an emergency contingency fund too for these smaller projects like we just talked about on the agenda item. So, we know that we'll be getting about, what's the number, about 950,000 a year. That would be dedicated to the 60% pot, or was that the 100% pot? I'm getting a head nod about 950, and if you held back,
That's the full amount.
closer to
that's the full.
amount.
So
More
we're
like
closer to
500.
600,000, and if you held back 100,000 for emergency contingencies, I thought that we would see a draft that said 1.7 is currently available and another 500,000, we predict another 500,000 would be available in the next 17 years per year. Yet we are interested in hearing the best ideas out there. We reserve the right not to spend a dime of it. but we want to know the best ideas, and we're not limiting those ideas. So that's my long-winded question to the executive.
So were we talking about a separate application and a separate application process for that shorter one? Wasn't that the discussion?
I thought so,
Yeah,
it was just
more
gonna be
con-
brief.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
That was a different discussion, but yeah,
Abbreviated.
we will have that
Yeah.
also, a mini application, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as far as the reserve amount or how much to, dedicate towards this, I mean, I think the thought process I had at least was working with Doug to say this is what is expected to be available. Does not, limit council in spending 700,000, $1 million of it, 200,000. That's, the seven of you get to choose that, right? What you feel comfortable leaving in that fund also going forward. I know when I was with the city of Mount Vernon, and we did this last year, we let those revenues grow to have a year in reserve at all times, in case that huge, grandiose second step facility came about across the street from the Skagit First Step Center, which I also have plans for anyway. Something like that came along, you'd have money available to do that. My comment would be, I would be hesitant to recommend that the council projects any future funding. This is sales tax related, very volatile, and I think that's why Kevin threw some of these things in here, that if the funds aren't available for whatever reason, the county, or the city's not liable to fund all of these applications. So I would caution the council against that language in an RFP, to project what would
Isn't
be
that why
available in
it
the
says
future.
we reserve the right to do what we want to do?
Exactly.
But
That's
if
an
we
out
don't
for the council.
project to the applicants that money is potentially considerable, then we won't get all the applications that we might get.
I think I raised this last time. I'm not comfortable anticipating. It just doesn't make me comfortable because it's such a volatile funding source. So, and I said that last time, so I'm just restating my,
Maybe we could ask Doug what the range of volatility is. It's not like it volatiles down to zero, right? We may come in 20% under, 25% maybe. No,
Sorry, hold on. Councilmember Vandershoop has to be
If you don't mind.
recognized.
I don't know if anybody would be interested in this, but could we, state the last 3 years of, revenue that we did receive in this document? Not actually referencing it whatsoever, but just have 2021, 2022, 2023. These were the actual revenues that we received. Not binding us to anything, for informational purposes only, showing what we have received historically, which I'm assuming is public information anyways. And then a good metric for people to look on, if we're thinking that we want people to understand what the revenue stream could be.
Do that?
Just throwing that out there.
Okay.
So we're not ready to pass this yet, is what I'm hearing?
Oh, I would be
Or-
more than happy to make a motion very, very, concisely, so we could pass it tonight. Because I do want this to get passed tonight, but if you need me to articulate exactly what I'm talking about, we can pass it, and then the edits can be made.
I'd like to see it get done too,
Okay.
and get it out there.
And that amendment to it would be that we list historic
I would
revenue collections.
I would ask that on, what page would this be on?
trying to look for it.
3, where Richard's talking, number 2?
Yeah, so that's the part that we need to figure out. I would, well, just one more minute of discussion. Are people okay with this? Is this a terrible idea? Are we fine with this?
I don't think it's a terrible idea. I think everything's so volatile. I mean, if you go the last 3 years as far as revenues, I mean, it's been pretty steady up for the city of Mount Vernon, even going through COVID, but then when you look at the economy itself, I mean, it was in the tank and then it came up a little bit. Now it seems to be, inflation's just gone stupid. So I don't know. I think sometimes you could count on that, but, I don't think I just don't wanna get too pigeonholed to where, all of a sudden, we have to go to the general fund because, you know, we told them that they were gonna get this and,
I expect to have no words associated with this, except for, I would request that there be a table added, for 2021, 2022, 2023, with the specific amount of funding next to the year, that we received for the 1590 fund. And no additional information, no words next to it, and I would like for that to be placed in an applicable spot, wherever you choose around the funding.
I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with that.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
I totally get what you guys are saying.
Yeah.
You just want it for informational purposes, which makes sense.
Just the 1590 fund that's available from those 3 years, because we've already dedicated, you know, some to iOS, right? So.
Wonderful.
Okay,
That's a perfect.
The 60% piece.
yeah.
And that could go, I think it could go right under the 1.7 million in there, so just
On
for
page
reference.
3.
For the last 3 years, the city of Mount Vernon has collected these amounts.
Would you like for me to make a more concise motion?
So I still have some discussion.
Yeah.
The bolded text says the city of Mount Vernon estimates 1.7 million to be available for funding at the time of applications being approved. When I read that, if I was a sponsor, I would assume 1.7 million is all that's available. That is pretty clear. When you read RFPs, requests for proposals are very clear about how much money is going to be available, and proponents then size their applications to the scale of available funding. This is a 1.7 million pot of money that people are going to ask for one-time pots of money, as opposed to they will look at this and see, oh, we can't do what they did in the city of Anacortes. We can't count on the city to partner with us long-term. That's not what we're going to propose. We're going to propose a different idea. So we're taking ideas off the table by not allowing those resources to be available. I just don't, I don't see how we could abide by that. And there is a volatility, but that's why we have a finance director who tells us what that volatility is. That's why we have a lawyer who writes caveats that say we're not held by anything. We can do whatever we want. We're the legislative authority.
I hear what you're saying completely. Is there like one sentence that we could add where we could explore future years so that we open up the possibility of doing like something they've done in Anacortes? Just the possibility of it. Kevin, is there some legalese sentence we could
No,
throw
this
in?
is simple, it's not legalese, it's just.
Simple. I like
you
it. That's
you
even
Try to
better.
be, even lawyers try to be clear and concise.
Right.
Sometimes we have a hard time. The
mean,
city of Mount
let's go a
Vernon
little
estimates
down today.
1.7 million to be available for funding at the time of the applications being provided by the city council on October 23rd. However, proposals shall not be limited to the 1.7 million of funding available.
That works for me.
Hang on a
Or
second.
need not be
Hang on.
limited.
However, I got you.
Good thing these meetings are recorded.
Thank you.
Is council comfortable with something like that?
One more time, Kevin, the quick version.
I
of
need a
the-
court reporter to read it back to me.
Yeah, because that was,
You
Used
thought
to
you
be
had
in
it
a
written
trial
down.
lawyer where you have a court reporter. I don't know.
However, I got the however.
Provided,
the city-
however, proposals need not be limited to 1.7 million of available funding.
Yeah, that's all I was asking for.
Okay.
Leave us the discretion to interpret good ideas for the city.
So I believe a motion to amend the RFP with the language that Kevin used would come first, right? You want to do that, council?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Motion by Melissa, second by Councilmember Brock Smith. Again, a motion to amend the RFP with the language that Kevin stated. We'll go back and get that language exactly and add it to the RFP. Any further discussion on this?
Are
Okay.
we gonna include the table that Andrew suggested?
Do we still like the table?
Do
I'm
we need
okay
the table?
without it,
Okay,
doesn't matter to
I
me.
just wanted to,
Oh, I appreciate that.
All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion passes. Thanks, Steve. Kevin?
Good evening.
I'm gonna be hanging out there for a little while I think about that last item. Item D tonight is the approval of an ordinance that would update the city's Public Records Act policy, and City Attorney Kevin Rogerson will present this item to council.
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. As a result of some recent legislative police reforms that require fully commissioned law enforcement to have recording devices on their person, the city has now body-worn cameras, which creates a public records burden for every body-worn camera recording. One of the things that the state legislature has done to help alleviate the financial burden of having to retain and disclose those and redact those body-worn camera images that need to be redacted for privacy or other concerns is that it allows the city to bill for the reasonable costs incurred in doing such redactions, altering or distorting, pixelating, suppressing, or otherwise obscuring those portions of body-worn camera recordings that we are required to do by law. So this ordinance will allow us to recoup those fees, and in addition, it does update your public record liaisons that are assigned to each department, for each department being responsible for retaining and searching for public records. Staff overturn changes and staffing, we need to update that as well. Those are the two core issues that this ordinance changes your current policy. There are exemptions to being able to incur these fees. Those are set forth in law. We would adopt those exemptions as well. This has been presented at your committee level once at length and introduced again briefly at another one.
Questions for Kevin?
I have a question.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, Kevin, I did not catch this previously, but I noticed on page 18, in terms of forms of payment, the city takes personal checks. And I was a little surprised to see that. Is there something in here that addresses when a check becomes NSF and the staff time that goes into that to try to recover that? Does that matter?
I don't, we might have a general financial policy on receiving NSF checks when their debts are lawfully owed. It's not addressed particularly in this policy. I don't know.
Right. So the city's okay with taking personal checks? Okay. Just want to make sure.
Department head says yes.
Okay.
Good question. Other questions? Council, a motion to approve this update would be set under ordinance number 3890.
I'd move to approve ordinance 3890.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Molinar, second by Councilmember Beaton. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Ordinance 3890 has been adopted. 6E is another proposed ordinance related to the Mount Vernon Library Commons project, this one for LTGO bonds and a federal TIFIA loan agreement. Kevin?
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. Tonight before you is bond number 3891. This is what's called a bond ordinance, and I'm going to just, before I get into my presentation, recognize that we do have bond counsel from Cannon Gates, Cynthia Weed. There's a lot of things that city attorneys do and try to be competent of. One is not municipal debt, which is its own bailiwick and world of financial legal obligations. Cynthia Weed from Cannon Gates has been our bond counsel, well, since I've been city attorney, so at least 20 years, if not longer. I think she is available by Zoom, so if you have questions regarding this instrument and how municipalities incur debt, I will do the best I can. With the caveat, I will always defer to Cynthia Weed, who is the expert in legal financial obligations when it comes to public entities.
Let's check in with Cynthia real quick to make sure she can hear us and we can hear her. Cynthia, are you there?
I've not seen her
Oh, well, looks like I'm gonna be doing the best I can.
I'm sure she's a phone call away.
Yes. So, by way of background, as a critical component of our overall downtown economic development plan and to address also the long-needed shortfall in library services, the city of Mount Vernon has undertook the construction of what we well know as the Library Commons Project, which consists of a multi-use infrastructure project located in our historic downtown area along I-5. It includes provision of library services, a community center space, structured parking, with a public mega charging, electric vehicle charging floor, park and ride facilities, a transit stop, and such other capital improvements as the city council may approve. The project's completion advances the best interests of the citizens of Mount Vernon, serving not only as the state-of-the-art public amenity for gatherings and the provisions of public services, but this is the cornerstone project that meaningfully advances our overall economic development and allows us to redevelop the city's downtown long into the future. So this is a very, very substantial milestone here. The passage of this ordinance allows us to complete this project. To do that, Finance, former Mayor Jill Boudreau and your city's legal team looked at all avenues of how to responsibly finance such a big project. One of those avenues is that the Congress passed what's known as the Transportation Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, TIFIA, and this act authorizes the TIFIA lender, which is set forth in your bond ordinance, the Department of Transportation, to enter into agreements with one or more obligors, which is us, to make secured loans. Because the United States Congress found that a well-developed system of transportation infrastructures is critical to the economic well-being, health, and welfare of the people of the United States. That's what we have here in the Library Commons, is a transportation infrastructure that is state-of-the-art, modern, and allows for electrical vehicles. So the city has, by state law, authority to incur debt obligations and issue general obligation bonds payable from your regular tax levies. That's your bond ordinance. That's your legislative act. My memo goes and cites the actual state authority in RCW that authorizes you to enter into such agreements, but suffice it to say, you have authority to do so. The city requested the TIFIA lender, which is the Department of Transportation, to make a loan to the city in the principal amount of not to exceed $27 million to provide long-term financing for a portion of the costs of the project. Finance Director Doug Valesky is going to go into the details of the actual principal balance and the loan terms. The TIFIA lender has approved the city's application, and I'll just put an aside, by no short measure of a lot of work by city staff. It's a lot of work I was not responsible for. I came in as the lawyer at the second part of the movie. So it should be acknowledged that staff provided hours and hours to make this deal ready for you to approve tonight. The city has been provided with a form of a loan agreement, which you should have, the most final draft. And therein, a form of limited general tax obligation bond, which is the bond tonight. All you need to do is take action on the ordinance tonight. Because it is a bond ordinance incurring debt, it will require a majority of the whole of the city council, so we need 4 votes at a minimum to pass your ordinance. Upon adoption of the ordinance, it shall delegate in Section 6 approval authority of the mayor to execute the loan agreement by the TIFIA lender. At that point, the city shall receive the benefit of the TIFIA loan subject to the terms and conditions of the loan agreement attached to the bond ordinance. I believe closing is still set for April 30th. Not much time. So, before you is both the bond ordinance and the loan agreement. These have been reviewed by the city's bond council and myself, the city attorney, as well as your finance director, city staff. We have approved the bond ordinance. All parties have agreed to the form of the bond ordinance. The language has been agreed to. The loan agreement, you have the most final form for approval. That is still draft. We still have some language to resolve from the last discussions that I've been a part of. However, under Section 6, it is clear that the mayor has authority to make changes that aren't substantial to your loan terms. And at this point, I can relay to the city council that the remaining language won't substantially alter the business terms that you're going to hear from the finance director. I think there's some language between bond counsel's legal opinion and their lawyers, which is regarding issues such as sovereign immunity, which has nothing to deal with your loan terms, like rates, length of term, ability to refinance. Those are business terms. Those would not be subject to change. So it's staff's recommendation to approve the bond ordinance and then we can move forward with the closing date. We can continue and finish our negotiations, which I would expect to be done very quickly, perhaps by the end of the week, perhaps by tomorrow at our weekly meeting.
Thanks, Kevin. And good news, backup has arrived. Cynthia, I believe, is on the call if
Okay.
council has questions.
Right.
So are we at the point now where council could adopt the ordinance, or do we have more presentation, or are we?
Well, it's up to the city council.
Okay.
Finance Director Doug Valesky's here if you want to discuss the TIFIA loan agreement and the business terms. Cynthia Weed apparently is here if she wants to discuss just briefly what a bond ordinance is. If you're not comfortable with my presentation, that's fine with me. I won't be offended at all. Or if you're ready to proceed, we can
Have the
proceed. tonight.
terms changed since we last discussed this?
The
No,
business
I don't-
terms?
I don't need further.
No, I have a question afterwards, but it's not related.
Okay. Other questions about the ordinance, language, terms? Okay.
Got to move for approval of ordinance 3891.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilmember Hudson, seconded by Councilmember Vanderstoop. Any further discussion, council? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. All right, and
Thanks,
this
council.
monumental ordinance passes.
Thank you to
Councilmember-
staff.
Look, there's the,
Oh,
all right.
Oh, there she is.
former Mayor Joe Boudreau is on the call as well. Welcome, and good evening, and thank you
You did
for
it.
shepherding this one
Not for sure.
Largest
tirelessly.
bond we've ever passed?
It could be.
Doug, thank you as well.
Yes, oh, yes. Big
Thanks,
Thanks
Doug.
to Doug.
And Councilmember Vanderstoop has,
I'm more than happy to, I'll take a note and email somebody else, but I'll just, so everybody knows, because we're passing this, I'm wondering if this affects the section 108 loan repayment, for the CDBG. It's $110,000 out of that every, time we do this, so, but more than happy to follow up separately.
okay, yep, got an answer for you for that. Item 6F is the approval of an amended agreement with HKP Architects for Services on the Library Commons project. Public Works Director Chris Phillips is right in front of us.
Doug had the
Hello,
same
Chris.
thing. It's,
What's that?
that must be the shirt. You kind of jumped back as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
So,
you're
good
right
evening,
there.
Mayor. Good evening, Council. City staff recommends that the City Council authorize the mayor to extend the agreement with HKP for Mount Vernon Library Commons Architectural Design Services not to exceed the amount of $231,760.75. Currently, the city is maintaining costs within the project's allotted contingency funding. City staff recommends City Council authorize the mayor to enter into this agreement pending any questions that you may have.
Questions for Chris? This is the item, one of a few items we were briefed on last week.
I have no questions. I'll make a motion that council authorize the mayor to extend the agreement with HKP for the Mount Vernon Library Commons project not to exceed the amount of $231,760.75.
Second. Gary.
Motion by Councilmember Beeden and seconded narrowly by Councilmember Hudson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, say no. Motion passes. 6G is the approval of an amended agreement with OAC Services for their work on the Library Commons project. Chris
Right.
Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor. City staff recommends City Council authorize the mayor to extend the agreement with OAC Services for Mount Vernon Library Commons project management services not to exceed the amount of $252,650. Currently, the city is maintaining costs within the project's allotted contingency funding. And as the mayor mentioned, I know you all talked about this last Wednesday.
But if any questions have
pending
come
your
up,
questions.
now's the time, or a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that council authorize the mayor to extend the agreement with AOC Services.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Beeden, seconded by Councilmember Molinar. Any discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. All right, the motion passes. 6H is the approval of an agreement with Trico Companies for the 2024 curb ramp improvements project. Chris?
Hey, thank you, Mayor. The project includes sidewalk repair and replacement of ADA ramps primarily associated with the 2024 paving program. The 2024 paving program street segments associated with the curb wrap improvements are as follows. We've got South 15th Street from Broadway to Division, Martin Road, and that goes from College Way to McLaughlin Road, and then on Kincaid Street. And basically, if you want to go, just pull a rectangle all the way around the Library Commons. We're going to make all that look nice. So we got 2nd to 3rd, Kincaid to Broadway, on Broadway 2nd to 3rd, and then 3rd Street from Broadway to Kincaid. So that whole entire area will be done. 8 bids were received on the 16th of April, ranging in price from $404,823.40 to $517,556.20, with the low bid being provided by Trico Companies LLC. The estimated construction cost for the project may be, or should be with tax and everything included, around $501,989.53. That's what our estimates were. But you can see our price came in almost $100,000 less. So that is good news because we'll be able to do more things for our citizens at a later time. So pending your questions.
I would very much actually like to see the bids in this case. 20% reduction is,
They're in there underneath it.
oh, they are,
Yeah.
excuse me. Oh,
okay.
I will look through those.
Mhm.
That's just, it's exceptional. That's,
You'll see this again when I bring in the paving project too. You'll be very happy with that as well.
As we all saw, the heavy traffic we had this weekend for Tulip Festival, which was awesome and good for the economy. Council remembers that the voters passed the Transportation Benefit District, so voters thought it was fair that all of those who use our roads and buy hot dogs downtown, a small percentage of those sales goes to this kind of work to patch up those potholes and more. Council, any questions for Chris?
I'd make a move to award the 2024 curb ramp improvement project to Trico Industries.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Molinar, second by Councilmember Beaton. Any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. And the motion passes. 6I is the approval of a tower lease agreement with New Singular Wireless. Chris is on a roll.
Yes, thank you, sir. City staff recommends, or is requesting the council by motion authorize the mayor to enter into a tower lease agreement with New Singular Wireless PCS LLC. This is an existing tower located at 3000 Little Mountain Road with the communication tower compound on Little Mountain Parkway property. City staff participated in renegotiation of terms for this existing tower, and we list those here, items 1 through 7. And just because the public is here, I'm just going to go ahead and read those very briefly. The terms are base rental payments begin at $35K annually. The term is for 10 years with an additional 5-year option. Rent shall increase 3.5% annually through the lease term. Payment of $3,500 administration fee for costs associated with any future modifications. Insurance and indemnification as set forth in the lease. A performance bond to secure payment of rents due and faithful performance of the agreement. And then 2 working days notice, advance notice to the city prior to entering the site, just to ensure we can coordinate any type of activity there. And a special thank you to our city attorney for working with this agreement. I think this was a 5-year labor of love between Blaine and Kevin, so just to kind of give you an idea of where we are with that. So, pending your questions.
Questions for Chris?
3.5% annual inflation factor sounds pretty good to me, so I'd like to make a motion to authorize the mayor to enter into the agreement as proposed.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Rocksmith and a second by Councilmember Hudson. Discussion?
I don't have any discussions. I just want to say thank you, Kevin. These are some pretty good terms.
He's pretty awesome at this stuff.
It sure is.
We're glad he's around. All those in favor of the motion to approve this agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Passes. Thanks, Chris. Item 6J is a resolution for a citywide electronic records policy, and IT Director Mary Thomas is here to present this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In front of you, you should have a request to approve the city's electronic records policy and backup and recovery policy. It is it's a one-year process. We started writing, and with the help of our legal team, we've been able to address everything from retention to where we find our electronic records, how we manage them, how we dispose of them. So really what this is it talks about all of that. All of us use electronic records, but this really defines them and where we have them and the different systems that we use. So if you have any questions.
Questions for Mary?
What resolution is it?
1054.
I'd move to approve resolution 1054.
Second.
Motion by Gary and a second by Andrew. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. And the motion passes. All right. Item 6K, the last item on tonight's agenda. It's another resolution. This one is resolution number 1055 for the city's electronic signature policy, and Mary has this one too.
So my request for this is that we address the city's electronic signature policy. This is also a requirement for that TIFIA loan. Their requirement was that we have this in place. And so when that request came from Director Valesky, we got busy. And we worked with our legal team. I've borrowed a local city, their electronic signature policy. We reworked it for the city of Mount Vernon, and that's what you see in front of you. And it addresses where we use electronic signatures, where we use wet signatures, all of those things.
Great. Council, questions for Mary on resolution 1055?
I have no questions. So make a motion, council, approve resolution 1055.
Second.
Motion by Melissa and a second by Mary. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no.
Thank you.
And the resolution passes. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
That is the end of our new business on the agenda tonight. For item 7, I will ask our city attorney, Kevin Rogerson, if there's a need for an executive session.
No.
And with that, we will adjourn the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting for April 24th, 2024 at 8:36.
Another unanimous night.
I thought, since Aaron is here.